All right, let's dive right in. I'd like to thank everybody for their interest in Zero Capital Solar Solutions. My name is Eric Moyer. I'm the Strategic Development Manager at Nelnet Renewable Energy, and I'm happy to talk to you about how you can accelerate your business with no upfront costs. So when it comes to solar for your business, you have options. These are just 5 of the ways you can start benefiting from solar power on day one with little to no upfront or out-of-pocket costs. Ultimately, the option that's best for your organization can depend on a wide range of factors. And our team stands ready to help steer you towards whether it's a power purchase agreement, solar lease, energy service agreement, or ESA, PACE financing, or just an operating lease. We have folks that are highly skilled and capable as far as and analyzing the financial benefits of each one and can hopefully provide you with the level of guidance that you need to make an informed decision. The first of the 5, just to dive right into, is probably one of the best known and one of the earliest options for financing a solar power system, and that's a power purchase agreement. These were pioneered by utilities and have been used for decades to provide a low upfront cost option for getting additional generating capacity. What this means for a business is that a solar installer will develop and install, own, and operate a solar power system. The business pays nothing upfront or a modest fee or portion of the cost initially, and then the customer pays for the electricity generated by the system at a predetermined, agreed upon, set fixed rate. Cost savings from energy production at the lower than market rate is what provides an immediate cost savings. And the potential long-term benefit improves if energy rates from the utility go up because you're already buying power from the PPA at a lower market rate. So there are some pros and cons to this type of structure. And we spend a little bit more time dealing with this than on the other 4, in part because, we want to make sure that you have an informed choice about which might be best for you. So in terms of the pros, there's very little risk. There's almost zero liability because the asset is owned by someone else, by the developer. The lower electricity rates than utility prices are a win, and the provider handles all the maintenance and performance risks associated with the system, giving you predictable energy costs for anywhere from 15 to 25 years with the option to purchase the solar power system at the end of the term. So it's a very predictable return on investment, and you have the option of buying this asset at the end. Cons, however, are that the duration doesn't always align well with your business's needs. So, for example, if you're only going to be in a property for 7 to 10 more years, may not make a lot of sense to enter into a power purchase agreement that lasts for 15 to 20. If the rate escalator outpaces the increases in energy costs from the utility, the savings and benefits could decrease over time. An example of this would be if energy rates went up by, say, 1.5% per year over 10 years, which is possible, but the rate escalator in the PPA goes up by 2.3%, well, that margin of difference is going to eat into the cost benefit of having the power purchase agreement over time. And the other thing is that ultimately, when you have a power purchase agreement, someone else's equipment is on your property, and that might create some limitations of what you can do with the land or with your roof if there are solar panels on it that belong to a third party. The next type of zero out-of-pocket financing option I want to cover is a solar lease. How does a lease work? Well, pretty straightforward. It's a solar company installs a solar power system on the customer property. The provider owns the equipment throughout the lease term, anywhere from 10 to 25 years. And the customer, or business in this case, pays a fixed monthly amount, typically like $300 a month, for example, regardless of how much electricity the system produces. Some leases include an annual escalation clause, just like a power purchase agreement, anywhere from 2 to 3% increase each year. The electricity bill savings then comes in the form of electricity that is generated and consumed at the property, reducing the amount of energy purchased from the utility. Also, if the customer receives a utility bill, it should be lower because a portion of their energy is now being met by the solar power system. Typically, in most areas, solar leases also take advantage of net metering. Net metering allows any excess energy produced by the system to count against any energy consumed from the grid, thus offsetting additional consumption. Customer may receive credits on their utility bill through the true-up or net metering, and these credits help offset the cost of electricity drawn from the grid. In terms of maintenance, because you have a lease, the system is owned by the solar developer. So there is no overhead and no costs associated with maintaining the solar power system. In the end of the lease term, typically, just like with a power purchase agreement, you have the option of renewing the lease with the developer or purchasing the system outright, usually with credit from the payments made over the term of the lease. And you can also just simply opt to have the system removed. So getting into the third type, an ESA or Energy Services Agreement. This is a performance-based financing model where a third party, often called an ESA provider, installs, owns, and maintains the solar power system or some other energy efficiency upgrades on the customer's property. Now, instead of paying for electricity produced like in a power purchase agreement or paying for a fixed fee like in a lease, the customer pays the provider based on the energy savings generated by the system. It's a shared savings model where you pay for the reduction in your energy costs, not necessarily the solar energy produced. So how does this really work? In practice, an ESA provider installs, owns, and maintains the solar power system, as well as additional energy efficiency and improvements on your property. Customer pays nothing up front. That savings-based payment then is essentially subtracted from your energy bill. So typically, the ESA provider would be paid for a portion of the savings. Say 80% of the energy savings would then be payable to the ESA for the improvements that they made to benefit your property. So you're still receiving some benefit from that reduced energy cost, but you're having to pay that back to the ESA provider. Payments are often linked to a system performance, so the provider is incentivized to ensure that there is optimal performance for the business or for the customer. Typical length of these contracts is anywhere from 5 to 20 years. And at the end of the agreement, the customer can, once again, purchase the system, extend the agreement, or have the system removed. That might entail more than just removing the solar if there's additional energy savings measures that were part of it. So the fourth type is a type of structured financing, very similar to tax increment financing for real estate improvement, is PACE financing, or property assessed clean energy financing. So a PACE system allows property owners to fund the solar project and other energy improvements with no upfront capital and repay the cost over time through their property taxes. Sometimes this can be taken as part of a building improvement or capital campaign, and it can finance the project in whole or in part. PACE financing is attached to the property, not to the property owner, and the repayment is made as part of the property tax bill. So in essence, how it works is you have secure financing. The customer will provide partial or upfront total financing of the solar installation for all eligible upgrades like HVAC, insulation, LED lighting, etc. The financing is repaid through the assessment on property taxes over a period typically ranging from 5 to 25 years. The installation of the solar system is then installed, and the customer can benefit from the energy savings and from the cost savings on their bill through net metering. Annual tax assessment payments then are paid instead of monthly payments to a lender. The customer repays the loan to their property tax bill, semi-annually or annually. The payments are fixed and spread over a long term. So they'll stay with the property if the property is then sold. The nice thing about that is you're passing along the benefit in a clean manner to the next building owner if they so choose to take it. Transferability: if the property is sold, the PACE assessment will transfer to the new owner. So it's tied to the property, and it makes transactions a lot simpler. So the fifth and final type is an operating lease. A solar operating lease is a financing option where a customer leases a solar system for a fixed monthly payment. But unlike a solar PPA or ESA, it's typically treated as an operating expense rather than a long-term asset or energy purchase agreement. It's more common for businesses seeking tax-deductible operating expenses instead of capital ownership of the solar asset. How does it work? Well, from an installation to ownership standpoint, the solar developer or financing entity owns the system. The solar system is installed on the customer's property, but the customer does not own it. The lease is for a fixed term, anywhere from 5 to 15 years, and the customer pays a fixed monthly or quarterly lease payment for the right to use the solar system. The payments are made regardless of how much energy the system produces. From a standpoint of electricity savings, the solar system reduces the customer's utility bill by generating on-site electricity, which is then self-consumed by the property. Lease payments are separate from utility bills, so savings are determined by the difference between the reduction in the utility bill and the leased cost. In terms of maintenance, the system owner or lessor is typically responsible for maintenance and any performance issues. So again, there's a lot less risk to the building owner or to the business owner. You can renew the lease and purchase the system at a fair market value at the end of the term, or have the system removed at the lessor's expense. So what does all this look like in total? Well, in comparison of all the different solar financing methods, in terms of ownership, you notice that one of these is an outlier. PACE financing gives you, the customer, the greatest control over your system. It also provides you with the highest potential savings because you're not splitting it with a developer or as part of a PPA, limiting it. So if you own the system outright, you always get the best return on investment. There is no escalator as far as the total cost of the PPA or agreement or payments, what have you. You're just paying your loan payment or assessed tax value. Significantly reduces or eliminates the bill, and it gives you full control over the operation of the system, but it also gives you full liability and maintenance and performance. And typically that's something that can be managed pretty well through whomever your installer is. And there's the wide range of different service providers in the solar industry that are happy to take on operations and maintenance for a nominal fee. So whichever one of these tools is right for you, that's up to you to decide. But again, our team stands ready to provide assistance and guidance and answer any questions that you might have. Until then, again, my name is Eric Moyer with Nelnet Renewable Energy. Thanks so much for your time.